Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Payoff.
Welcome to an all-new episode of The Payoff. I'm Tom. That's Jeff. We're covering not a classic, but an infamous match scenario, behind-the-scenes drama, WCW, less than a year before they go out of business, Russo, Hogan, lawsuits, Jeff Jarrett laying down for the title. I mean, and this is all back where the Hogan heel run began just 4 years later, the Daytona Beach Ocean Center, believe it or not. So,
yep, exactly. Yep.
Jeff, what why did you want us to talk about this?
So this one, I think the catalyst for me was there was and we'll talk about it here, but there was a re-earthed interview, if you will, that was making the rounds quite a bit. I think it was back in April or just March. I don't even remember, but Hogan did right after this took place. We're really shooting hard.
Yeah, he sounds different, right? Like the tone, yep. Like he's not the Hulk Hogan brother. I mean, he's like this is actually like a real person, and that's rare for him.
Yeah, and this was, of course, the Bubba the Love Sponge show that we do, and so it was actually less than 24 hours after the show, and so, and this was, even to this day, it's who knew who was getting worked, like who was in on it. Like it's almost like not quite the level of the screw job, but even like kind of reading back on some of this, there were so many reports that were just like, what to believe, what's going on. Like at the same time, like, you can kind of point to what was happening, but it's still just crazy. And so I think that's my primary reason for wanting to cover this is because the whole thing is just so fucked. Like it really is. And so I there's really not a whole lot else to say. Like, yeah, we can talk about the show, but okay, like let's, there's so much that happened behind the scenes, just like the screw job. You forget that a whole show took place as well beforehand. So yeah,
we're gonna dig into all of it. I'm looking forward to it, and it's like a car crash. You can't not look at it as you drive by. So this will be interesting and fun, and we'll see where it takes us. But let's get into the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
Bash at the Beach 2000, Daytona Beach Ocean Center, July 9th of 2000, 6,500 in attendance. I mean, it's crazy because, like, you think and we've talked about this before, Jeff, but, like, for as bad as WCW was at this stage, for as close as they were to, quote-unquote, going out of business, they're still putting 6,500 fans in an arena and drawing a pay-per-view crowd. So it's like, yep. Still were making. I mean, there was still revenue coming in. It's not like there were a shit ton of eyeballs on WCW at this time. Again, different TV landscape. I get all that. So the tagline for this show was "It ain't no picnic." And okay. So we start off cruiserweights, Lieutenant Loco defeating Juventud Guerrero to retain his cruiserweight championship. Big Vito's your WCW hardcore champion. He's going to retain it by defeating Norman Smiley and Ralphus in 6 minutes. Daphne is going to win a wedding gown match against Miss Hancock, who we know as Stacy Keibler. She's accompanied by David Flair. That was a 4-minute match. Chronic, Brian Adams and Brian Clark, are going to win the WCW Tag Team Championships against the Perfect Event of Sean Stasiak and Chuck Palumbo. I can't say that I remembered that tag team. Canyon is going to defeat Booker T in a 10-minute singles match. That Canyon documentary, that man, that was wild. That really, I mean, seemed like a really nice guy, and it's a shame what happened, but super talented. Mike Awesome's going to win by DQ over Scott Steiner in a U.S. heavyweight championship match in 9 minutes. Vampiro's going to defeat the Demon in a graveyard match in 8 minutes. Shane Douglas is going to defeat Buff Bagwell in 7 minutes. Then we get the match we're about to cover. After that, Goldberg defeats Kevin Nash in 5 minutes. This was determining Scott Hall's WCW contract, which was terminated because Goldberg won. Goldberg can beat Kevin Nash in 5 minutes here, but when he's red hot, we're going to end the streak with Kevin.
Yeah, with a cattle prod.
And then, and you'll get into this, but due to what happens in the match, we're going to cover Booker T and Jeff Jarrett would have a singles match for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship at the end of this show. So absolute, just pure chaos.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
What I was going to say, one of the I'll add
is
the announcers, God bless them, said 16,000 fans were in the audience.
Right. There's 16.
Yes, 16,000. So,
yeah.
Get into the build of why these two are wrestling, and then we're gonna just watch the backstage and the match and everything, and then we're gonna talk more about it. So, but yeah, how did we?
Absolutely.
Hogan, I'm curious what Hogan was doing at this time. I'm just curious about all this because many of us probably weren't watching this at the time, and we vaguely remember.
I'll give the listeners at home. I'll kind of go off tangent for a second. So, looking at this card too, since we got some time to kill, since this is a short one, there was the highest rated match on this card was 3.25 stars. Do you want to take a stab at which match you think got 3.25 stars?
The Canyon match.
The Canyon Booker T was 3. It was actually Mike Awesome and Scott Steiner in that 3.25 match. And the main event also getting 3, and everything else is either it was bad, and so except the opener, of course, the Cruisers, but no, this shouldn't shock anybody. So,
well, I'm a huge Mike Awesome mark.
Yep,
so
you are, yeah,
that
absolutely good stuff. So, all right, few things happen here. So I'm going to start with Jeff Jarrett on this, and so. You've got it was actually April. And so it was July 2000 is when this Bash on the Beach taking place. It was April where you had that kind of rebooted WCW with Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo in charge. And so at that time, all of the titles were vacated. So you also had them creating the New Blood stable as well as the Millionaires Club stable. And so the New Blood, for those that need a reminder, it was kind of the younger wrestlers at the time. And so a lot of different people. It was huge. It was massive. But you had people like, Mike Awesome was a part of it. Buff Bagwell was a part of it. The leaders were Bischoff, Russo, and kind of Jarrett on this one. And so, but also like Bret Hart was a part of it, Billy Kidman, Rey Mysterio. So you had some interesting people in that one. But then you also had the Millionaires Club with Hogan and Flair kind of being the leaders of it, if you will. And then you had Nash, DDP, Sting, Hennig, Luger, couple other people as well too, but for the most part, that's who's kind of making up. And so this was the older, talent holding back the younger talent was kind of what they were going for on this one. And so, Jarrett actually joining the New Blood. It was Spring Stampede, April 16th. He actually beat DDP, who was a Millionaires Club member, to win the vacant WCW World Heavyweight Championship at the time. And so, you had Paige winning it back, like a week later. It was kind of a little bit of back and forth. Then, as we all remember, you had the Jeff Jarrett, Eric Bischoff taking on DDP and David Arquette, which led to David Arquette winning the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. We all know that worked out so well for everybody after pinning Bischoff in that match. And so Kimberly Page, DDP's wife, was the special referee at the time. You also had, there was just a lot. It was bad. There was just a lot happening and stuff like that. And so you ended up to Jarrett. You had the Slamboree May 7th match between Jarrett beating Page and David Arquette. It was a 3-way triple cage match with Jarrett winning, of course, after Arquette turning on Page during that match. It would have been Jarrett's second WCW World Heavyweight Championship on that one. And so he kind of back and forth with it. He got the title back from Ric Flair a couple times, feuded with Nash and Hogan throughout June of 2000. And then, of course, we had this July Bash at the Beach. So while he feuded with Nash and Hogan a little bit, not a ton, there was some stuff, but, because of the factions that they were in, the stables they were in, they did have some interaction. So Hogan on this one, I'm going to go back to August 1999. If we remember, there was a 6-man main event tag match. He did not come out or came out. Her son came out dressed in the traditional red and yellow. Hogan had on black and white. It's kind of weird and kind of starting what we would, really what I think was the kind of start of things getting just weirder. And so you had Hogan beating Nash. It was a retirement match actually at Road Wild to retain the WCW World Heavyweight Champion. He actually took a break from TV from October 1999 to 2000. There was different things happening here, but Hogan in his own book said that he was asked to take time off by newly hired head of creative Vince Russo and was not told when he would be brought back at the time. Despite some reservations, he agreed to do so. Did come back. It was that October 24th. It was Halloween Havoc. Hogan was supposed to face Sting for the heavyweight championship. Like I said, it came out in street clothes. He laid down for the pin and then left the ring. So we get then, it was getting into February at this point, and he was still kind of off TV and stuff. And so, like we said, he was scheduled for this Jeff Jarrett, World Heavyweight Championship match. So some of the reading I was doing here was that Hogan was paid per appearance. So it was very important that he got on all the pay-per-view. He would get more money on a pay-per-view, same with the weekly. And so when he's not getting booked, he's not getting paid. And so that was a big part of this too, of kind of what was happening behind the scenes. You had Vince Russo taking over. There was probably some, I'd say, bad blood as well already in the water there. But kind of having how this played out was just interesting. So we'll talk about it in the aftermath here, but you were already starting to see some dissension amongst kind of what was happening and kind of what was going. And so it was all very weird. There's, and I've got a lot of quotes and there's a lot out there now. And of course the Dark Side of the Ring episode as well too. And so, Hogan had also been having a lot with Billy Kidman as well too up to this point, and he was not a fan of working with Kidman, and so that was difficult for him as well too. So just a lot of really weird stuff. And so to your point, what was Hogan doing during this time? Not a lot, because he was being kept off TV, whether it was injury, whether it was Vince Russo, whatever it might have been. He just wasn't around a whole lot at this point. So yeah, we've got some interesting stuff to watch here with this. It's not going to be very long, but then we'll just kind of keep talking about it after the fact as well too.
Yeah, and you covered it, but it's just you go through and you look at Hogan's, 99, 2000 in WCW, and it's just what in the hell were they doing with him? I mean, they're probably paying him a shit ton of money, but he's working Sid and Nash and Sting and Sav. I mean, he's doing all this stuff, but none of it's memorable. None of it makes any sense. It was just not good at all. And then after this happens, he's gone. and WCW goes away. And then he's, they did the XWF thing in 2001. And then, he's back on WWE in 2002, but it's just a weird little, like, call it like 3 to 4 year stretch for him, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of this too was, we see as well, like, and Hogan has said this, and it kind of makes sense. Like, Russo was not a fan of Hogan having so much creative control over what he could and couldn't do, which smartest thing ever for Hogan to do, but also like trying to build something. I think it was beyond the point of saving at this point, WCW, like it just wasn't ever going to happen. But at the same time, like, it all played out very weird at the same time.
But here's my defense of Hulk Hogan is, well, what the hell are they going to do with him? You know what they would have done with him if he didn't have creative control? They would have done what they did to Ric Flair, which is embarrass him. And, so I don't blame him. I'd want creative control too. I'd protect my character. The guy's got a multi-decade legacy, and he doesn't want to be, put into a spot where he's going to be embarrassed, so that's going to be ruined. And God love Ric Flair, and he's come out fine despite it. But like, you're talking about a guy that they shaved his head and they, ran him into the ground, and he wasn't making nearly the money that some of the other guys were. And, he divorced and depression and, all these things. And it's like, yeah, good for Hulk Hogan to exert that creative control, because God knows what a guy like Vince Russo would have done to him if he didn't have it.
Yeah, one of the quotes here I'll read. Part of this is Hogan. The business is about money, miles, and number one, all of the sudden, I'm in a bad position. I have a creative clause in my contract just in case somebody like Stephanie McMahon's 6-year-old daughter gives me a bad finish. I can cover myself. I'm going to exercise the creative clause. I'm going to hit Jarrett with the boot. Russo is going to hit the ring, duck the bat, powerbomb, hit Jarrett with boot 1, 2, 3. Russo says, fuck you. You can't do that. Fuck you, you son of a bitch. You can't do this to me. Take it easy, bro. It's not a big deal. I'll do the job for Jarrett, but I want out of my contract. If not, I'll win the match by DQ, but tell me what you're going to do with me. Lie to me, outwork me. I can't lie to you. I can't do anything with you. What do you think of me? What do you want me to think of? If you're as good as you say you are, and we have Vince McMahon tearing the house down, and apparently you weren't running that company there, because I can see what a creative genius you've been here. Our whole business is in the tubes. Maybe you can't think of anything. Fuck it, brother. That's when Bischoff get into it. That's when Bischoff get into it, and they start arguing because they're having a bunch of problems. Call Brad Siegel back, tell him I'm taking the belt off Jarrett. They call him back and he goes, I'm reading Hogan's contract. He had creative control over the body content and final finish of his matches. If he wants the belt, give it to him. So, and then we get into this. So, yeah.
Crazy.
Just crazy. Yep.
Oh,
and Brad
Yeah,
I was going to say Brad Siegel, who he's referencing, was one of the executives at the time, with, kind of all these dealings as well, too. So it's just, yeah. So
let's get into it. We're at the 1 hour and 50-minute mark of Bash at the Beach 2000. We're going to just watch this and we'll provide some commentary and see what happens. And then we can talk about the aftermath and what we thought about it afterwards. How's that sound?
That sounds good. I will say I'm interested because one of the things I was reading was the pop when Jarrett comes out and then the pop when Hogan reacts to it and does like the crowd thing. And so I want to make sure we're listening to it at that point, because they said it was massive, but it's all relative too. So this is going to be wild. I haven't watched the full thing since we've been researching it, so I'm excited, but it's going to be wild.
Me neither. So we'll track it.
Okay.
We'll watch it. You ready?
Let's do this.
All right. It's time for the payoff.
Oh, it's time for the payoff.
Look, he's here. He's here. It is. Hollywood Hogan is here. Make no mistake about it. And let's go to Mean Gene.
He looks good.
All right, Tony, thank you very much. He is in the house tonight, Jeff Jarrett. I told you before we went on the air that Hollywood Hogan would be here. What now,
Listen up good. Listen up good, Jurassic slap ass. My patience is running short with you. Hogan's here. Big deal. Plan A now goes into effect. You know, over the years, Hulk sure has made a lot of enemies. So tonight, allies aren't hard to find.
Wait a minute, Jeff Jarrett. What do you mean by that?
You ever seen the movie Usual Suspects, G? Wait and see. Now choke on that, Slappy.
All right, quite a history between Jeff Jarrett and Hollywood.
Weird promo, okay. So you got Mean Gene. So they showed Hogan walking backstage. You had Mean Gene interviewing Jarrett. They're now showing like some of the new blood kind of taking out Hogan and doing all that. And so they're kind of cutting the promo and showing that. So yeah, just really weird stuff. Is there, we'll get into it at like, we're watching the promo that's the lead up, and is there any way that this could have been saved? Like, is WCW just too far beyond saving at this point? Like, is there anything that could have happened?
Dude, they were, I no. I mean, they're the thing is that, I mean, you know, dude, the company, as in like the overall company, just did not want WCW to succeed. So, I mean, they're not giving them any resources, anything. Okay. I mean, no, there's just no way that this was going to survive.
Yeah.
It's so much bigger than, oh, Russo sucked at booking or Hogan this or whatever it might be. It was just so much bigger than that.
We got Michael. That's Michael Buffer, right? Yeah, I always him and his brother doing UFC as well too.
I get them so mixed up.
Yep. And so apparently slap nuts. I see a lot of slap nut signs. I did forget that until this moment that was kind of Jarrett's kind of rib on people, if you will. And so just I'm with you. I feel like at this point, like they interview that was 24 hours after this happened. Like you knew what was going on. Like that was just kind of plain and simple at this point. So let's see. I'm just reading through some of this stuff. So another quote here is they're kind of coming out to the ring at this point, or about to, not yet. According to Hogan, Russo didn't have a good reaction to him using creative control. Russo is out of his mind. This is Hogan. Jarrett comes in the dressing room. Johnny Ace lays down a hell of a finish. It's so long I had to quit screwing around, put the beer can down, and really think about it. It's a hell of a finish. Jarrett is going, I get it. We go over the finish, and Jarrett goes, I have to run out for this match. I'll be right back. He never comes back. 10 minutes before the match, Johnny Ace comes to, is everything okay? Yeah, Jarrett never comes back. I crushed a Miller Lite can, get ready to go to the ring. I said, something is weird though. Jarrett is a good detail man, and I'm surprised he didn't come back to talk about the finish. That's okay. I know he had the run in. I'll call it in the ring. I'll make it work. Hogan recalled. He continued, I go out to the ring.
Give me your timestamp, by the way.
I am at 153, 52, 53, 54, 55.
Okay, cool.
All right. I go to the ring and I'm predicting trouble. I don't know if some of the boys might run out there. I got my two gimmicks on me. I got the 1/2-inch sword, the 1/4-inch sword, 2-inch sword, anywhere from 10 stitches to 550 stitches, depending on how bad I want to pull it. I'm thinking old school. I'm thinking this shit is on now. I kept 2 in my mouth, 1 on my wrist. I'm being cool, but I'm not a fucking idiot. And so you got Russo walking to the ring now at this point.
Russo. What in the world? Mr. Russo's back. Welcome back, Mr. Russo.
Yeah, a face we haven't seen in quite a while.
Hey, Barry Bonds doesn't have the guts to show up to the All-Star game. Mr. Russo grabbed his shirt, grabbed his bat. Here he is.
Mark Madden was great on commentary, by the way.
Yep.
All right, so Russo in the ring, Jarrett coming down.
The situation involving this man, Vince Russo. Here comes Jeff. Here comes the champ.
He stands 6 feet 1 and weighs
So he's about to come out. It says Russo is out there. He's got the belt and leaning on the apron. No big deal. I figure he's being a prick because he's mad as hell at me. Jarrett walks out and is walking around. I think he's working. I come out. The roar is electric. The loudest pop of the night. I do the ear thing just to stick it up Russo's ass and show him how over I was. And so now this is where we're at, is Jarrett's kind of walking around the ring. He's got the guitar. He's got the belt on. They're just kind of walking around.
Crazy.
Blood members, but it was Russo who was introduced by Jeff Jarrett. Jarrett, the chosen one, has always been closer
Yeah, a little bit pyro there, yeah.
than any other performer in WCW. What is Russo doing out here? Why is he out at ringside here with Jeff Jarrett in his corner here tonight?
I'll tell you what we're seeing. We're seeing Jeff Jarrett and Kaiser Soze himself, Vince Russo, in the ring. One of the
Great
enemies,
music.
one of the many enemies, according to Jeff Jarrett,
Yeah.
that Hulk Hogan has made in this sport. And it's time to take a walk down Sunset Boulevard, straight to Hollywood.
Well, I don't know why Mr. Russo's here, but I do know I like it. I wonder if Hogan has a plan. I wonder if Hogan has help lined up. I wonder if Hogan has a man the stature of Vince Russo looking out for him. I rather doubt it, because Hogan has burned a lot of bridges. He's fresh out of friends in wrestling.
Well, if you believe Jeff Jarrett, Hogan will not have a plan. He will not have a backup. It will be, to coin a phrase, mano a mano. Hogan and Jarrett for the World Heavyweight Championship.
And Hogan's like kind of looking and kind of like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, you see him looking behind him a little bit there. Like, that was interesting. Yep.
The Ocean Center in Daytona Beach. Same event. WCW.
You see, yeah, he did it again. He's kind of just looking over his shoulder.
Does the NWO exist at this point?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's like coming out with music, but I mean, they weren't like a.
Years later, he'd be coming out in the same colors, being cheered by the fans, going after the WCW title once again.
I'll tell you one battle.
Looks good, too.
Looks
The
great.
minute Mr. Russo got to WCW, the big
This
behind-the-scenes
is
battle
2 years
has
prior
been
to him
Russo
trying to
and
touch down with the Rock.
And now that comes to pass.
Hulk Hogan earned this shot, defeating Billy Kidman at the Great American Bash. And hang on a minute. I was wondering what Hogan was motioning to, and
So Hogan got the mic.
here's the chosen one has taken it back up
You
the
know
ramp.
something, Jeff Jarrett? You are the chosen one because I have chosen you to powerbomb your ass through this mat for my brother, Big Sexy. So come on down and get your ass kicked, Jarrett.
So Jarrett's now back up at the top of the ring. Kind of weird.
He said, I've chosen you to powerbomb you right to the ring.
Even though he came out first, he kind of waited and is now at the top.
Crafty game of his own.
Now, is that Jeff Jarrett being confident, or is that Jeff Jarrett being scared out of his shorts, knowing that he's got to step into the ring with Hollywood Hogan?
Or is that Jeff Jarrett who knows something that Hollywood Hogan doesn't?
That's good questions on both ends there. Whatever
This is
it is.
interesting because I have like a real time with Hogan. What he was saying, it's almost like a real time. And so we're about to see it happen here. But he goes 2 to 3 times. Jarrett doesn't get in the ring. I think he's working the crowd and we're going to tear the place down. I got them right in the palm of my hand. When you have them like that, you can fart in the ring and the place will go crazy. So you got Jarrett circling the ring now, walking up the steps. Maybe getting in, maybe not. Yep.
The same ring gear that Jarrett wears now. With right? It's the same exact. Okay, here you go.
And he's laying down.
Hang on a minute.
What's Jeff doing?
Is it Halloween Havoc all over again?
Russo's
Wait a
talking
minute,
to Hogan. What's he
Russo.
saying?
Russo, I think, told Jarrett to lie down. What's going on?
Look at Russo is holding the belt up like, do you want the belt? Pin the man. Jarrett's down.
And Hogan is as shocked as
What
we
in
are.
the world, Jeff Jarrett? This can't be Jeff Jarrett, a man that grew up in this sport.
What is going on?
Russo throws the belt in the ring at the feet of Hogan.
What the hell? Now Russo. I think we're deviating from the norm here. Deviating from the script. I hesitate to say that, but what the hell is going on?
I don't think Hogan had any idea what was going on.
The Russo sucks chant.
I don't know what to say.
I don't know if Hogan
has asked for another microphone. I think he wants to talk again. So fans, we apologize.
Russo, what a return.
Is this your deal, Russo?
Wow.
That's why this company's in the damn shape it's in, because of bullshit like this.
Wow. My God, this is real life. 1, 2, 3.
We've got a new world champion.
I guess we do.
Good God almighty, are we going to have some splaining to do tomorrow?
Look at Hogan's face. Look at fans.
Jeff Jarrett just turned his back on Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, this is so bad.
Yeah, that's it. Like,
it's weird. It's uncomfortable. It's bad. I know there's other aspects of it, but it's like, man, Russo, like, you're just an asshole. Like, you may not be able to book Hulk Hogan or write anything for him or think his career's over, but like, have some fucking respect for the guy. Like, just let him out of his contract and let him go work for Vince or pay him to stay at home. But like, having him come there and like embarrassing him like this, and you're screwing over the fans, you're screwing over a legend for what? Because you don't like that you can't have full control over every single person. Absolute bullshit. Well, let's continue talking about, but let's get into the aftermath.
Oh, it's time for the aftermath.
So what did you think?
Yeah, so I mean, it's just weird. It really is. And so even like
not good weird, not good weird, not
right,
weird, right. Not inside baseball weird, just bad weird.
Well, and if you're watching, we still have it on, and I'm watching like Tony right now is like, even you could tell, almost kind of tell, he's like, what is going on? Like, they're discussing it, like, what the hell is going on? But that's it. They've moved on. Like, there's nothing else. Like, they're showing Vampiro. Like, it's just, it's really unusual how it played out. And so, yeah, this, how does this play out? What's happening? Stuff like that. And so you had Hogan at this point. We'll get into what actually happened with them, but this is, of course, Hogan explaining it in the moment. This son of the bitch gets in the ring and lays down. Russo looks at me, climbs up on the apron. Fuck you, Hogan. He throws the belt at me. I look down at Jarrett. Is this asking Jarrett, is this a rib? Why are you doing this? Jeff goes, you always told me to do what I have to do. He's laying in the middle of the ring, and I'm talking to him. Get up and wrestle. Let's stick it up this guy's ass. You're one of the boys. You've always said, do what I have to do. I'm doing what I have to do. You're a fucking piece of shit. I put my foot on him. They counted it. I took the belt, walked to the back and said, fuck him. I came to the back and said, where's Russo at? I couldn't find him nowhere. I'm shaking so bad. I'm ready to cry. Here comes Russo. He pops up on the monitor. I scream, get Nick out of here, his son. I was going to kill Russo, and I didn't want him to see it. And so it kind of went on. He said, he saw me to get got my kids out of the building, so he knew I was up to something. I waited for that son of the bitch to come back, and I'm going to unload on him. Half of Russo's boys are watching his back. I'm not going to drop any names, but I had people on my left side watching me. Dellinger, one of the backs, he says, Terry, get out of here. No, I got something I have to say. It's not worth the lawsuit. Get out of here. And I had Bischoff and a few others get me out of there.
Wow.
So just insanity. So like we said, like kind of the more the aftermath on this one, like you had the defamation of character lawsuit against Russo. It eventually did get dismissed in 2002. Russo claims the whole thing was a work, and Hogan claims that Russo made it a shoot. Eric Bischoff agreed with Hogan's side of the story. He wrote that Hogan winning and leaving with the belt was a work devised by Bischoff rather than Russo, and that he and Hogan celebrated after the event over the success of the angle. but that Russo coming out to fire Hogan was an unplanned shoot, which led to the lawsuit filed by Hogan. It was the last time he was seen in WCW. Hogan claims in his autobiography that Russo turned the angle into a shoot, and he was double-crossed by Turner executive Brad Siegel, who did not want to use him anymore due to Hogan's cost per appearance. Eric Bischoff states in his autobiography that Hogan winning and leaving with the title was a work, which would result in his return several months later with the plan to crown a new champion at Halloween Havoc, where Hogan would come out at the end of the show and ultimately win a champion versus champion match. But Russo came out to fire him was in fact a shoot, which led to the lawsuit filed by Hogan. Bischoff claims that Hogan celebrated at the event, but was distraught to get a phone call hearing of Russo's in-ring shoot after Hogan left the arena. And so Jarrett went on to have another match later this evening. But then also feuded at the end, Mike Awesome, Sting, Buff Bagwell, Flair. It was actually, it didn't really get picked up by WWF when they bought him, and so it's in here. Vince McMahon was seen watching Jarrett with the WCW venue on the television set, mocking Jarrett's trademark of distinctly spelling out his name. McMahon stated that Jarrett would be capital G, double O, double N, double E gone. So, that part of it just being weird too. So, I mean, this just. What are your thoughts? I'll stop for a second here before we can get into some of the reading or the reviews, if you will. So yeah, where are you at this point?
It's just horrible. Like compare this to like the Montreal screw job. And yeah, that was kind of awkward and annoying and weird too. But like, that was interesting. And it was a really good match. And yeah, they hated each other and had to do some screwy things, but oh well. I mean, this is just horrible. And it's again, how do you get to this point? It's just horrible leadership. And it's just a company that had horrible leadership. And, Russo is both a creative genius and probably not the right guy to be managing the entire process. He's a great number two. He's a great guy to sit in a writer's room and come up with crazy ass writers and scripts and great booking. But like, that's a much different job than actually managing personnel. And is Hulk Hogan difficult to deal with? Yes. Guess what? Most high performing people in most industries are difficult to deal with. Do you think the star quarterback is easy to deal with? Do you think that the actor that's leading in the film is easy to deal with? No. Talented people are tough to deal with. Austin was tough to deal with. Hogan was tough to deal with. So what's the point? The point is that, Russo was just a massive failure in this role, in a chaotic WCW that had no great leadership and had a company that was trying to end it, but just absolutely horrible. And I defend Hulk Hogan in this for sure. Like the guy cared about his legacy. He didn't want to be participating in shitty booking at this point in his career. So figure out a better way to do it. So that's my thought. What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, and so I just kind of fast forward a little bit here. Like Jarrett, they have the match against Booker T at the end of the night here. Like Jarrett walks out with the belt again after Hogan just won it. So also it's like, the hell's going on? Like, like it had to be confusing even for the people there of like, the hell is going, like Russo did come out and cut like a 10-minute promo too, which that's what you really want on your show, but like just really weird, like all of it. And so this one, and so kind of talking through this one, Hogan was 59 in 2000. Jarrett was 5 actually. And so there's a lot here that I'm going to read through, and then we'll get, obviously our thoughts, but the torch on this one was work or a shoot. It seems getting people to ask that question is among the top goals of Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo. Bischoff attempted a number of times to fool fans, reporter, and his own wrestlers and staff, most famously the Brian Pillman incident, where he refused to wrestle Kevin Sullivan. Russo has been around firsthand for the 1997 Survivor Series incident where Vince McMahon swerved Brett out of the title. has since wanted to be the mastermind behind a similar controversy. Sunday, they succeeded in creating such a situation. Wrestlers inside everywhere are wondering what exactly happened Sunday, how much of it was planned, all, some, or none, and what the implications will be. The mainstream wrestling fans, however, were not enthralled with the situation. If the incident was a war, it appears only 3 people were in on it: Russo, Hogan, and Eric Bischoff. Here's the elaborate scenario those 3 appear to have devised to get this angle over as being a shoot. The plan was for Hogan and Jarrett to take place. Hogan to dominate Jarrett, bloody Jarrett, and bomb Jarrett through a table. Then Scott Steiner was going to interfere on Jarrett's behalf. Jarrett would be DQ'd as a result of interference. Rather than restart the match or order a rematch that night, Jarrett was going to be forced to wrestle Booker T as punishment later that night. Booker T was scheduled to win the title either way. After all afternoon, Hogan met with Russo and Bischoff in his bus. First met with Bischoff alone, then with Russo alone, then with Bischoff alone, then with both of them. The quote shoot storyline is that difficult negotiations were taking place all afternoon amongst those 3. The turning point of these quote negotiations was supposedly Hogan asked Russo what he had planned for him after the pay-per-view. Russo told Hogan he has no plans for him, but he would figure something out. Hogan got upset because he gets paid per appearance on Nitro. Hogan, upset with Russo's lack of respect for his star statue and value to WCW, invoked his creative control clause in his contract. He ordered WCW to let him win the title as revenge for them not having plans for him after the pay-per-view. After all, if he won the pay-per-view, they'd have to come up with something with plans to use him. The Observer on this one, Hogan pinned Jarrett to theoretically win the title. Vince Russo came out looking forlorn. Jarrett came down. The announcers went on and on about they were saying that it was real life, not a part of the format. Mark Mann, who hates Hogan, took great delight, clearly thinking it was a shoot, that Hogan was exposed for what he was. Russo came out and tried to do a face interview. Nobody reacted to what he said. It was kind of embarrassing having him to do his pep talk. And then paid and papered crowd, and the paid and papered crowd, apparently not computer savvy enough to be in on all the things that happened during the week, had no clue what he was talking about. Russo talked about his wife and 3 kids and didn't know if he would come back, but he did out of loyalty to all the great wrestlers. Like, just on here. Yeah, same thing. Hogan played his creative control card. He said that Hogan insisted that he win the title from Jarrett, so he gave Hogan a belt and said that you will never see Hogan again. The basic theory seems to be eventually breaking up WCW into a Bischoff-led group and a Russo-led group. He said Jarrett would wrestle Booker T for the new title because the old one was dead and buried. I reference to WC or ECW there. Hogan gets to be Bret Hart and swerve himself into the position of trying to be relevant again, just as he's tried by making himself count him red and yellow Hulk. Russo gets the respect of the dressing room for ridding it of Hogan's cancer, and he even got to mention names of the frustrated guys to make them feel important. And most importantly, if it worked, he'd undying loyalty, something a booker needs to get things accomplished. It's something no Booker in WCW has had for years. He gets to TV to get younger guys over and has a whole crew of major names to feud them when they come back. Why were there 2 belts there? Why wasn't Hogan's mic cut off? If it was in that situation, and with someone as political savvy as Hogan, he would have talked longer, and there's no guarantee of what he would say being able to work perfectly into Russo's speech later, which was so perfect to get him over as a hero to the boys and the internet types that live for getting over to. The fact it made for good television was a rarity because these types of angles usually aren't great. Under those circumstances, it would be Bischoff, not Russo, that would have made that speech. Why wasn't Bischoff the peacemaker behind the scenes, and why would he leave before the end of the show? So there's a lot of takes in here. I feel Meltzer's off base on some of this shit, but I think he's got some points with what he might have been trying to prove, but what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I just think overall, in the grand scheme of things, this is not that complicated. Okay.
Yeah.
You could argue the Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Brett's contract ending, height of the Monday Night Wars, didn't want to drop. Like, that's complicated. This is not complicated. This is just stupid. And it's for no one. The casual fan watching's like, what in the hell was that? That was so stupid. I can't believe I paid money for this, or I'm attending this. Yep. The smart fan like us is like, this is really dumb too. So it's like, it just was for no one. It was just the entertainment value of this thing is like a 0 out of 10. My payoff score is a 0 out of 10. I just absolutely horrible. There's nothing redeeming about this.
Yeah, I think like, I almost find the work as it shoot. Like, yeah, you could break it down into its pieces and say like, okay, like how did they do the promo this way? Like, how did they do the promo that way? Like, why did it work so well with other things? Like you said, like, the same things are said about Brett and Sean. Like, why did the camera show him doing the WCW like, hand motion? Like, okay, fine, whatever. Like, sure, you can always make those arguments for these types of things. But I think at the same time, like, I think Vince Russo just didn't like Hogan. I think plain and simple, that's what it boiled down to. I think kind of explaining the story a little bit, like hearing like, hey, this is what they had laid out, like the DQ, like, okay, that does kind of make sense. And like at the end of the night, it would have given a little bit something more to it. But how it played out with this, like, very unusual. I think, why did it play out on TV? We'll never know. I think we do know it was Hogan. Like, it's so unusual. Like, it really is. I'm with you. It has to be a 0. I think there's no other way that you could do it. I think that like Hogan got worked. I think that if anybody was getting worked, it was Hogan, like plain and simple. Like the dude did get screwed. And so, but also, like, I get what they may have been trying to accomplish if they say, oh, he wanted his people, like he wanted, to push Hogan out. Like at the same time, like Hogan was top star, or the biggest name at this point. So you can't really shit on that too much and say, oh, well, like Hogan's got a point with all of this. And so, especially like if that interview that I was kind of reading from throughout this was like literally 24 hours after all of this took place, like it's going to be fresh. He's going to be hot. Like some of the things he said, he would not be saying even if it was a work shoot, it just wouldn't be happening. So, I think to that, like, it's just, like you said, it's weird and not in a good way and not in like a enjoyable way. It's just weird because it was all super weird. And we literally watched this backstage bullshit play out on a pay-per-view in the middle of the freaking card, which is just weird, plain and simple.
And people paid for it. At least if it's on Nitro, it's like it's free, but people just in attendance paid for it. But the last thing I'll say is just that, I think it's a real testament to Vince Russo that, I mean, a guy that was responsible for writing the Attitude Era, that clearly has a lot of talent when it comes to the business, has barely been able to hold down a job in the business the past 2 decades. It's just a real testament to what a just pain in the asshole the guy is. And again, it's not that he's not talented. It's not that he hasn't done many things, but like there's always this thing, and it's no different in sports. You see it with athletes all the time. Is their level of being an asshole worth their talent level? Antonio Brown was a very good football player, but he wasn't worth the hassle. Vince Russo is the same way. Yeah, he's talented. He's probably a better writer than many of the people that are writing wrestling right now. And he could probably step into the writer's room at WWE right now and be fucking tremendous. I don't doubt that. But his personality, the way he treats people, talks to people, behaves, it's just not worth it. And you see it right there. And it's like, you can't act that way. You're not above, you're not so talented that you can do that. And again, the guy's barely been able to collect a paycheck in wrestling. Yeah, bits and pieces here and there. Oh, made money with TNA for, months at a time. Great. But like, you're not working in the wrestling business. So anyways, well, we're going to take it home, but as always, we appreciate you listening. Really fun episode. I actually like this.
I did too. Yeah.
Make sure to mix some of these in there. I know this is like an extreme example, but some of these kind of infamous, hey, the actual quote unquote match was only a few minutes or whatever. I like these because there's so much to talk about. So this was a lot of fun. We appreciate you listening. As always, we'll see you next week on an all new episode of The Payoff.